And it's time for Lefties Losing It. Let's start the week with some cringe content, courtesy of Hollywood. Here is Jeff Bridges on Jimmy Kimmel's awful program, reprising his dude character. It does not go well.
And, yeah, ice. Let's get ice off our streets and into our beverages. This aggression will not stand, huh? Right?
Right.
So let's just abide, abide together. Yes, we can do this. Now, that's just like my opinion, but it's a good one. Don't you
That's
think,
a pretty great opinion,
Yeah,
I think.
man.
Thank you, dude.
You can see why Jimmy Kimmel's ratings are circling the drain after that little suspension bump. Not only is he miserable, unfunny and cringe, but so are his guests. And talking about miserable and unfunny, let's check in on alleged comic Trevor Noah, who decided he was going to make jokes about Charlie Kirk and his murder. And he did that by lying about it. He might think this is edgy, but it's just trash. Unfunny, dumb, trash, lacking any wit or insight.
I wasn't going to say anything about Charlie Kirk, but don't. There's nothing funny about it. Oh, now you tested me. I mean, there's nothing funny about it? You can't say there's nothing funny about it. No, there's nothing fun. No, don't say that, because as a comedian, I'll be like, I'm sure there's something funny about it. The guy was shot while defending guns. Do you understand how... I'm not even writing that as a joke. As a human, you have to admit that is an incongruous, funny thing that happens. You are there, you're like on stage and you're like, let me tell you why people should have guns. Wapa!
What a pitiful jerk. And for the record, Charlie wasn't killed defending the Second Amendment. He was murdered as he was about to answer a question about trans killers, about trans activists committing acts of violence. But Trevor Noah didn't make that point, did he? If he wanted to talk about irony, he could have talked about the fact that Charlie was allegedly murdered by a trans activist in a relationship with someone who is trans, who murdered Charlie as he was answering a question about trans violence. Trevor Noah doesn't have the guts to do that. He just plays to the easy leftist loser crowd who don't want to laugh. They want to applaud right-on comments like trained seals. Now, let's talk about awfuls, affluent, white, female leftists. They're a growing problem and they dominate Democrat ranks. Yes, there is something wrong with Democrat women, and it runs a lot deeper than the craziness of the squad. Let's look at the woman who is the front runner to be the most powerful in America. She's the front runner to be the next governor of California. Here's a brief highlights package of her meltdown on CBS recently.
How would I need them in order to win, ma'am?
Well, unless you think you're going to get 60% of the vote. You think you'll get 60%? So you don't think
I feel like this is unnecessarily argumentative. What is your question? It's the do you need them to win part that I don't understand. I'm happy to answer the question as you have it written, and I'll answer. What I'm saying to you is that...
Well, to those voters. Okay, so you...
I don't want to keep doing this. I'm going to call it. Okay. Thank you.
You're not going to do the interview with us?
Nope, not like this. I'm not. Not with 7 follow-ups to every single question you ask.
Every other candidate has answered our follow-ups.
I don't care.
Yep, that's Katie Porter, and she's leading in the polls to take over California, the 4th biggest economy in the world. Maybe that meltdown will change things, but she's been unhinged for a long time. Here she is berating a staff member for getting in her shot.
If we don't electrify our transportation sector, that we're going to lose more than 500,000 Californians dying prematurely to air pollution and other problems, and the state could lose. Get out of my shot.
I wanted to tell you that that's actually incorrect. It's not that it's electric vehicles. It's that if we don't meet the commitments under the Paris Climate Accord.
Okay, it does. Okay, you also were in my shot before that. Stay out of my shot.
And let's hear this election night story from Katie Porter involving her young daughter.
So on election night, I went to pick up my daughter from water polo practice, and she's 12, and she got in the car and she was crying. She said, Mom, Trump won. Trump's going to win. And what if I get raped and I need to have an abortion? This is from a 12-year-old, my 12-year-old daughter. And so it was really a reminder of how scary this time is for people.
Oh, Katie, you brought your family into this. That was a mistake, because we're now going to check in on what happened during your divorce proceedings. Yes, Katie's ex-husband, Matthew Hoffman, detailed that the Democrat frequently abused him and threw all sorts of things at him during their marriage. She once shattered a glass coffee pot on their kitchen counter when she felt their house wasn't clean enough. The ex-husband also said, she would not let me have a cell phone because she said, you're too effing dumb to operate it. And most incredibly, he said that Katie Porter once became so incensed by the way he was making mashed potatoes that she raised a ceramic bowl of steaming hot potatoes and dumped them on his head, burning his scalp. And she's the front runner to be the governor of California. Goodness me, Democrats are slow learners. And talking about slow learners, let's check in with ABC. Let's have a look at Vice President J.D. Vance absolutely demolishing George Stephanopoulos. The long-term Democrat operative turned ABC News anchor did not see this coming, and his reaction to it was to abruptly end the interview. This is certainly a lefty losing it.
I don't know what tape you're referring to, George. I saw media reports that Tom Homan accepted a bribe. There's no evidence of that. And here's, George, why fewer and fewer people watch your program and why you're losing credibility. Because you're talking for now 5 minutes with the Vice President of the United States about this story regarding Tom Homan, a story that I've read about, but I don't even know the video that you're talking about. Meanwhile, low-income women can't get food because the Democrats and Chuck Schumer have shut down the government. Right now, we're trying to figure out how to pay our troops because Chuck Schumer has shut down the government. You are focused on a bogus story. You're insinuating criminal wrongdoing against a guy who has done nothing wrong instead of focusing on the fact that our country is struggling because our government's shut down. Let's talk about the real issues, George. I think the American people would benefit much more from that than from you going down some weird left-wing rabbit hole where the facts clearly show that Tom Homan didn't engage in any criminal wrongdoing.
It's not a weird left-wing rabbit hole. I didn't insinuate anything. I asked you whether Tom Homan accepted $50,000, as was heard on an audio tape recorded by the FBI in September 2024, and you did not answer the question. Thank you for your time this morning.
No, George, I said that I don't.
Up next, we'll be right back.
Joining me now is Newsweek Senior Editor-at-Large and Article 3 Project Senior Counsel Josh Hammer. Josh, J.D. Vance had this to say about that interview he posted on X. Peace in the Middle East, China threatening critical supply chains, government shutdown. No, George doesn't care about that. He's here to focus on the real story, a fake scandal involving Tom Homan. I've got to say, Josh, I don't know why George quit that interview so abruptly. Surely he's not so sensitive about JD calling out his dwindling audience numbers?
Yeah, Rita, ABC, let's not forget, was the media organization that hosted the vice presidential debate between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz, a truly loathsome and pathetic attempt at a moderated debate. That was actually probably the single worst moderated debate, in at least my estimation, of the entire cycle last year. So they've shown their true colors. I mean, frankly, when it comes to the corporate media here in the United States, who has not shown their true colors? I mean, CBS News making a very interesting decision in hiring Barry Weiss to be editor-in-chief. We'll see how that plays out. But ABC certainly doubling down on stupid. And J.D. Vance is totally right, by the way, which is that this is exactly why all these networks are just losing ratings. ABC is also Jimmy Kimmel's network. That we saw what happened with Jimmy Kimmel recently, when you had Sinclair and Nexstar and various other affiliates that decided to briefly drop his show from the air. So Rita, this is why more Americans in general, especially in my generation, millennials, Gen Z, this is why so many people come up without even having access to TV. The people these days get their news on the internet. They get their news on social media here. I mean, very few people are watching ABC, NBC, and CBS other than boomers 65 and up there. But J.D. Vance is not a boomer. J.D. Vance is very much of, by, and for a younger generation. That's one of the many reasons, Rita, why I was so personally excited and gung-ho about his political candidacy in the first place there. And I think it's one of his major appeals moving forward as we barrel ahead towards 2028.
And ABC had to pay Donald Trump a sizable amount for some of the misreporting, misinformation, deliberate disinformation, whatever you want to call it. Now, I featured Katie Porter earlier. She has a long history of erratic behaviour, underperformance, all sorts of staffing issues, and yet she is the front runner to be the next governor of California, the fourth biggest economy in the world, Josh. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, California. I mean, speaking of doubling down on stupid, right? I mean, we're just saying how ABC is doubling down on stupid. I mean, what is it going to take for California to sober up at this point? I mean, frankly, the fact that California, Rita, is going down the rabbit hole it is. I have plenty of fellow conservatives here in the United States who are like, oh, California, schmalifornia. Well, look. In theory, I would like to salvage California. Call me idealistic, call me crazy. California is one, massive. It's a lot of people. Two, it's beautiful. Three, it's a massive economy. So in theory, I would really love for Californians to come to their freaking senses and to stop voting for absolute fools to the governor's mansion and the state legislature in Sacramento. But unfortunately, Rita, you can't help a people that does not want to help themselves. This is the exact same mentality that I find myself having over and over again when it comes to the crisis in Europe. I very much have enjoyed my visits to Europe over the years. I enjoy going to the classic cathedrals and the old streets. It's very different than what we have here in the United States there. I would like for Europe to be preserved, but the Europeans don't want to help themselves when it comes to immigration from cultures that simply do not mesh with their own and so forth there. So same apparently with California. Californians don't want to help themselves. I genuinely wish they would, but if they think that they're going to get any better governance after Gavin Newsom than Katie freaking Porter, then you know, I mean, I've got some news for them, and that's simply not going to be the case. I wish that California would get back to the state that was governed once upon a time by Ronald Reagan. There was a long stream, even Arnold Schwarzenegger, not exactly a conservative, but a moderate Republican. It wasn't that long ago, Rita, that California was actually politically not crazy. It's been left-leaning for a long time, but it was not crazy not that long ago. There's a fairly recent trend, and unfortunately, it's a really dastardly one.
Now, we've been covering the J. Jones scandal on this program more than most of the US media, who have, some of them have devoted zero time to the Democrats' Attorney General nominee for the great state of Virginia, sending horrendous messages about wanting to see a Republican colleague dead, along with the man's young children. It is just incredible that he is still in the race, Josh. And have a look at these Democrats. They're asked whether they're willing to condemn J. Jones and ask him to drop out of the race.
He has apologized. I wish other people in public life would sincerely apologize for stuff. So, no, I still am a supporter.
Quick question. Do you think J. Jones should drop out of the Virginia race for AG? The AG candidate in Virginia, J. Jones, should drop out of the race after those violent texts that came out of what he was saying about the former House Speaker in Virginia?
Being somebody who has, in my family, political violence is a real thing, and it's a big deal.
Do you think the Virginia AG candidate, J. Jones, should leave the race that he's in?
Time at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. Did you see those texts, though, that he sent? The violent text messages? Up out of the race, Senator J. Jones?
Senator, do you have any comment on J. Jones? So when you get back to the office, they're going to have...
There you go, Josh. Bernie, Chuck, the rest of the lawmakers there, most of them didn't even want to address the question. Is that good enough?
No, I mean, it's obviously not even remotely close to good enough. Rita, this is the problem with the current Democratic Party in a nutshell, is that they have this absolute fanatical, radical, decivilizational, anti-American, burn it all down flank. I call them the shock troops of the Democratic Party. That's the Black Lives Matter, Antifa, street thug wing of the Democratic Party movement. And they are increasingly an extremely violence-prone movement. And unlike the summer of love of 2020, where it was mostly limited to looting and arson, vandalism, and property crimes, it's increasingly becoming not just property crimes, but violence. I mean, we saw a direct line from all of the Biden-Harris administration's various threats about how Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans represented an existential threat to democracy. Do you remember that infamous speech that Joe Biden gave in Philadelphia 3 years ago? It was over Labor Day weekend here with the red backdrop. I mean, it was giving off, frankly, 1930s German-style vibes. And I can draw a direct line from that to multiple people trying to assassinate Donald J. Trump. I'm not saying that that anyone other than the direct moral culpability goes to the shooter. But the reality is these things don't happen in a vacuum. There was a shocking recent poll out of Harvard University that showed that over 30% of Harvard students said that they could potentially see a world in which they could justify acts of violence to prevent a speaker from speaking on campus. These are the kind of things, whether it's Jay Jones fantasizing about committing political violence, this is the issue. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. This literally is the issue that could bring this republic to the brink. It really is. I mean, when Americans or any people who are living in a self-governing republic, when you cease to be able to settle your political disputes, your moral disputes, your policy agreements, when you lose the ability to settle that at the ballot box with the pen, with the keyboard, the megaphone, and so forth, and instead you resort to the rifle and bullets and the knife, that is how republics die. This is really no joke. There's no exaggeration there. And I find it absolutely appalling, albeit wholly unsurprising, that so few Democrats, other than perhaps Senator Kelly of Arizona, are willing to say anything whatsoever about Jay Jones.
Well, let's talk about Portland now. We've certainly seen political violence in that place. Donald Trump is determined to clean it up. He says it's like a war zone. It's in decay. It's crime-riddled. The Oregon governor obviously doesn't agree. The Socialist City Council doesn't agree. But even the New York Times, Josh, is finally questioning the wisdom of far-left rule and asking what happens when socialists are in charge. Portland offers a glimpse. Josh, let's take a glimpse at Portland. This is the third world conditions you have to negotiate to reach Barnes and Noble at the Lloyd Center.
In Lloyd Center, and we parked in the parking garage, and now we're going to go up the stairs into the mall. And this is what is here. I wish you could smell it, because it smells like pee. New pee and old pee. Watch your step, there's pee on the floor.
So this is the only way to get upstairs if you're parked right here to get to Lloyd Center.
Josh, I'll take that back. I've been to third world countries. They're normally in a lot better shape than that.
You know, Portland once upon a time was a shining example of what a forward-looking and forward-thinking American city might look like. I'm thinking back 30, 40 years ago. But at this point, I think you're right, Rita. I've actually never been to Portland, but based on all that I've been able to glean there, my friend Andy No has been ground zero with the Portland Antifa riots for years and years now. Based on all that I've seen, I think you can make a very strong argument that Portland is in worse condition on a day-to-day basis from a cost of living, from a quality of life, from a crime perspective than your typical sub-Saharan African city. I mean, that's essentially what it looks like to me. But Portland has also become a shining example, unfortunately, of a broader national trend, which is you have these cities that are governed in politically monolithic fashion by Democrats year after year, decade after decade. I'm thinking of cities like Baltimore, Maryland, Detroit, Michigan, St. Louis, Missouri, Portland. So many of these cities just have mayor after mayor after mayor who are of one party only. Chicago, another big example there. I can't think of a single example. I literally cannot think of a single example off the top of my head of an American city that has had monolithic uniparty Democratic governance for decades and has been better off because of it. But the cherry on top is because the New York Times here, this is the article they're saying, oh, here's socialism at work. Dude, you guys have covered for Zohran Mamdani. The New York Times has offered all sorts of apologia for Zohran freaking Mamdani, a guy, I would argue, for whom socialist is actually far too kind. This is a guy who literally quotes Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto. He is a dyed-in-the-wool Marxist communist. I think socialist is genuinely not accurate. He's an actual literal communist. So if the New York Times, a month before the election, that's probably going to put this Hamas-supporting pro-jihad commie in the mayoral office there. Really? You guys are crying foul this late in the game? You had a really long time, the New York Times, back in the Democratic primary to just try to stop him there. And now it's so ridiculous. But ultimately, Rita, you reap what you sow. And the people of New York, I think, are tragically going to reap what they sow here. And it's going to look a lot like Portland sooner rather than later, I fear.
Now, before you go, Josh, President Trump will address the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, about his triumph in brokering a historic peace deal. This is going to be something that's going to be talked about for years to come. But I want to ask you about some of the anti-Israeli sentiment that has been normalised in America. Listen to this discussion between Democrat Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and Hassan Piker. Listen to how they talk about Israel.
It is absolutely a violent apartheid state.
No, it's an ideology. Zionism is an exterminationist ideology built around ethno-religious supremacist values. So when people say like, oh well, you know, I'm a liberal Zionist, like I want there to be a Jewish.
I've heard that so many times.
I'm a liberal Zionist. I want there to be a Jewish ethno state. I'm like, okay. Like, what do you mean? It's like saying you're like a liberal Nazi. You want an Aryan majority ethno state?
Josh, I'm going to ask you to be succinct. I'm sure there's plenty you could say, but what's your response to that?
You know, Rita, as the great Dennis Prager always says, you know, how many Muslim majority countries are in the world? And the Jews are not entitled to one tiny state around the size of New Jersey. I mean, it's just so utterly preposterous. You know, unfortunately, Rita, I wish that the Israel issue were solely an issue where the left is crazy, but there are some fringe voices on the right that are getting way out of hand on this stuff as well. I'm not sure if this reached Australia, but I was actually accused this past week while I was offline for a Jewish holiday by Candace Owens of being complicit in the assassination of my friend Charlie Kirk. I kid you not, that is literally what she accused me of. It is an insane, deranged, evil thing to say. And the only reason that she is doing this, the only reason is because I myself am Jewish and a supporter of Israel, and it complicates their narrative that Charlie Kirk actually was a firm, dyed-in-the-wool friend of the Jews and supporter of Israel. So it's on the very, very fringes of the quote-unquote far right. I'm not even sure I want to call Candace Owens the far right there, but it's very much in the mainstream left as well, and it's a big problem that we have to address all across the political spectrum.
Josh, just on Candace Owens, there are plenty of conspiracy theories right now about Charlie Kirk's murder, about whether the official narrative is accurate. How did your name start being mentioned in these conspiracy theories?
It's not entirely clear. I think the alleged series of events is that I was in this very active WhatsApp chat with Charlie Kirk, where he was blowing off steam and venting the day before his assassination about how he lost a $2 million a year Turning Point USA donation from a prominent Jewish donor. And then Candace took this tweet of mine from a day or two before Charlie's assassination, which was literally about an entirely different topic, about the horrific, savage butchery of Irina Zarutska on the Charlotte light rail. And I was quote tweeting a tweet from Donald Trump about public executions, and I said based. And Candace Owens took this totally out of context. And he was like, "Oh my God, Josh Hammers is foreshadowing the assassination of Charlie Kirk for turning against Israel." I mean, it's contemptible. I'm a lawyer. I know this is likely defamatory conduct. We're looking into possible legal action there, and I'll keep you apprised of it.
Josh Hammer, thanks for your time. Joining me now is celebrity and royal commentator Kinsey Schofield. Kinsey, sources close to Harry and Meghan have revealed they were shocked by Meghan's solo Paris trip last week, saying her latest relaunch left them deeply concerned about her marriage to Prince Harry. What more can you tell me?
That's right. This is coming from the Daily Mail that say the Sussexes both, but especially Harry, would typically turn down opportunities in Paris because it's where his mother tragically died. We learned over the weekend that Meghan wasn't even invited to the Balenciaga fashion show. She personally reached out to the designer and asked if she could attend, completely dismissive of Prince Harry's feelings. Then following that bizarre trip to Paris, as she accepted a Humanitarian of the Year award for selling jam, she removed Harry's hand from her back on the red carpet. And then the two were spotted going their separate ways throughout New York during their visit. I think this is a legitimate observation when Prince Harry won't shut up about security.
That is very interesting indeed. Now, Meghan Markle is going to be joining former Vice President Kamala Harris and Selena Gomez in Washington, D.C. this week for the Fortune magazine's annual Most Powerful Women Summit, where she will discuss her lifestyle brand as ever and talk about navigating entrepreneurship in the public eye and building a brand that will endure. I mean, I don't know how she can do that because this brand was created 3 minutes ago. Kinsey, if this is the best, most powerful women list they can put together, then it doesn't say much for this publication. I mean, really, Meghan Markle? How is she powerful? How is she an inspiration to women? She married someone famous from what I can work out.
Oh my gosh, is that not the truth? Is she the most powerful in the chicken coop in Montecito? Because that I could understand. But yeah, you know the idea, the TIG, American Riviera Orchard archetypes, Confessions of a Female Founder, the British royal family. These are all just some of the opportunities that Meghan Markle quit cold turkey. What can she teach us about building a brand that will endure? Her rebrands are giving us whiplash over here. But I will say it's interesting that Meghan has spent such a significant amount of time away from home between Paris. Now she's heading to Washington, D.C. after telling Netflix cameras that being away from her children made her physically ill.
Yeah, and so many of these trips, like you said, are unnecessary. It's not like this is part of her business. This is part of charitable work she's doing. She's basically swanning around, going to fashion shows and collecting awards she doesn't really deserve. So, you know, do you really need to be doing that? Now to revelations that Prince Andrew allegedly emailed pedophile Jeffrey Epstein long after he claimed to have cut all ties, telling him they would ride out their scandal together and would get to play some more soon. Just a day after the notorious photo of him with Ghislaine Maxwell and his sex accuser, Virginia Roberts, was first published. Kinsey, how accurate is this? How legitimate is this? Because if he's posting things like play some more soon to Jeffrey Epstein, I mean, that is just gross.
I mean, I'm pretty confident in this report. It's coming from The Sun. You know, Prince Andrew sent that message on February 28th, 2011, and that's significant because Andrew has previously insisted that he traveled to New York on December 2010 to break up with his friend Jeffrey Epstein and to end that association. But I do think that these emails are likely credible. It's from the same source that brought us those Fergie emails a few weeks ago, where she's apologizing profusely to Epstein. And it's just further proof that Andrew has no business showing his face around the British royal family. If he would lie about the timeline, what else is he capable of lying about?
Now, we spoke last week about confirmation that Katy Perry and former Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau are dating. We've all seen those photos now. The loved-up couple spotted kissing and canoodling on Perry's 24-metre yacht, Kinsey. Well, I think they're built for each other. I've got to say, they're both vacuous, they're both self-obsessed, and I think they make a perfect match.
And they kind of look like siblings. Yeah. I mean, apparently climate change only matters.
Do, actually, yeah. Has she been to Cuba as well?
Exactly. I mean, apparently climate change only matters until the champagne's chilled and the yacht is fueled. Romance on the high seas of hypocrisy. Trudeau and Katie are both climate change warriors, and proving that liberal guilt sinks faster than their carbon footprint. Besides that, though, I am enjoying watching Trudeau's midlife crisis. It's like the best reality show ever.
Now, Jennifer Lopez, she's had a few missteps recently. She's had a bunch of flops, awful movies, cancelled concerts, and her latest one, Kiss of the Spider-Woman, is expected to open to a measly $2 million in sales by the end of the holiday weekend. That's not great, is it, Kinsey?
No, and I'm curious about your opinion here, because there's this interesting piece in the New York Post about this, and the author says negative associations are tough to shake off. And he mentions J-Lo's earlier career, becoming this lovable star in rom-coms like The Wedding Planner, Made in Manhattan, and Monster-in-Law. But this negative associations are tough to shake off. He's like saying that now she's become associated with flops. I think it's Diddy. And I think it's the fact that she did not speak out. Yes, she's got drama in her personal life, but I also think people really were disappointed that she didn't speak out against P. Diddy throughout the height of that chaos.
I think that had a lot to do with it. I think her on-again, off-again relationship with Ben Affleck, just the impression that she's not a very nice person. There's a lot of people who've come out and talked about their interactions with her and how she treated them. There's a lot of Will Smith about what happened with her. They're very much loved and seen in a particular light. And that all just turned on its head. And now they do have these negative connotations. And definitely is impacting their professional life as well. Just quickly before you go, tell me about California Governor Gavin Newsom trying to get Joe Rogan to talk to him, either on Joe Rogan's podcast or perhaps possibly on Newsom's podcast. How well is this little campaign going for the governor?
This guy is so irrelevant and it absolutely kills him. He goes on a reality stars podcast and starts cursing and, you know, he's just so desperate for headlines and he challenges Joe Rogan. He wants to go on Joe Rogan's podcast because Rogan's podcast is the cool podcast, not Newsom's podcast.
Of the audience, yeah.
Yeah, but so he's basically just begging for attention.
Well, I tell you, I can understand why Joe Rogan wants to have nothing to do with him. Didn't Joe Rogan flee California because of Gavin Newsom's policies? And it wasn't just COVID-era policies, it's everything else that he's overseen in California. You've got the crime rate, the massive gap between rich and poor and all the impact that has. It's just a dysfunctional state. And that's why so many Californians have left for places like Texas and Tennessee and Florida. Kinsey Schofield, always a pleasure. Thanks for your time tonight.